Hello and welcome to the season finale of VU Sports Wired. Cutler Klein here alongside Max Schneider and Drew Sundaram. Thank you so much as always for tuning in. We've got a fantastic show for you this afternoon, bringing you end of season awards for all of Vanderbilt sports. It's been a wacky and wild year in Vanderbilt sports that has culminated, not quite yet, baseball's still going on, but has culminated in a national championship for the women's bowling team, and that'll sure be a part of our awards here. So guys, let's just get right into it. We're starting with Freshman of the Year. They have a lot of people to choose from here, a lot of really solid first-year players that have stood out across all sports. Who you got?
I mean, I have to go with Austin Martin, and I don't think he's just the best freshman on this baseball team. I think so far this year he's been the best player on this team, and it's really easy to see why. The numbers don't lie there. He's hitting .350. Nobody else who's regularly in the starting lineup is hitting even .300. So he's way above them in terms of batting average. He's the premier base stealing threat. He has 15 steals on the season. I remember, Cutler, the first game of the season, Austin Martin came up to bat. Never heard of him before. He was hitting leadoff. No idea what he was going to do. I criticized them for putting him in the starting lineup, and bang, he hit a home run on the first pitch, and he hasn't stopped since then. So I have to go with Austin Martin. Martin's also a guy who came into Vanderbilt. His first position is shortstop. And since he's gotten here, he's played left field, he's played right field, he's played first base, and he's played third base. Hasn't even played his primary position, and he's done them all excellently. You're talking about a guy who plays every position on the diamond, hits for average, hits for power. It's hard to pick against him.
Right, so big surprise here. My freshman of the year is also going to be from that #1 recruiting class. And we talked about them a lot coming to this year, but Mason Hickman's a guy that we really didn't focus on too much. And just the way he's been performing this year, it's kind of shocking that we weren't on his radar earlier on in the year. But when you take a look at what he's done this year, he's been really consistent. He's pitched a lot of really good innings, and he's 6-1. That's really, really impressive for this freshman pitcher coming into college to have that much success right away. And granted, his ERA is a little bit high. It's a little bit above 4. But he's also got 40 strikeouts on the year, and that is second in this ball club. So I think that what Mason Hickman has done, pitching, being really consistent for this team, adding a lot of depth to the bullpen when that was something that was really needed last year, I think that Mason Hickman has been really, really good for this Vanderbilt team.
No love for Saban Lee? Absolutely none? I mean, this kid, okay, granted the team didn't perform as well as we expected them to do, and I get that that's probably part of it, but there is no player that was as electric as he was this year. I think possibly even in the entire SEC, because Saban Lee just, the second he set foot on the court, was just going to be absolutely dynamic. And the reason that I would pick him is because I think he's one of the only people on this Vanderbilt basketball team that's going to be starting next year that was on the team this past year. So I mean, I get Martin. Martin's fantastic. Hickman's been lights out as well. You got to give some love to Saban Lee, at least in part of it. I think people will a little bit later in some of the other awards, but
Yeah, Lee was excellent. I mean, but the bottom line is the team, like you said, the team didn't perform well, and so not the best player on a team that didn't perform up to par. He was great, but Roberson was still the main guy on that team. This is a Vanderbilt team that's 10th in the country. They rank top 10 week after week. Austin Martin has been the guy on that team. He's been the best hitter. He's been there defensively, and like we said, Drew said before the show, they kind of have to decide, the SEC, whether to give him SEC Freshman of the Week or Player of the Week every week, because you don't want to give him both, and he is just a freshman. So it's been incredible. Saban Lee is going to be a guy for years to come in this program that's going to be a trailblazer for this basketball team. I just think Austin Martin has been so incredible in what he's been able to do in such a short time on campus.
Right, my one knock on Saban Lee, it has to do with more the way the sport of basketball works. I definitely see basketball as one of those games where a single player on the floor has the potential to take over the course of a game. And we've seen really electric plays from Saban Lee. He's been really solid, going to be a rock for the team moving into the future. But he just wasn't that type of player, despite all his success, to really take over a game and get those wins for the team down the road. So that's my one knock on Saban Lee.
I'll give you that. Now we're moving on to our next award, the Play of the Year. Oh boy, there have been a lot of plays to pick from. Guys, what's your pick here?
All right, so this is where I'm going to show Saban Lee some love. Point guard, none of us really knew about him coming into the year. 6'2", but in a game against Texas A&M, he jumped over 6'10" center for Texas A&M and slams the ball down. Really, really amazing play. Posterizes a dude who's got 8 inches on him. That's got to be my Play of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to go the route with the dunk, too. and mine's from a Mississippi State game that could have had two plays here that arguably either one could have been the play of the year. Riley LeChance, obviously, with that buzzer-beating 3 to beat Mississippi State. But I have to go for the one earlier in the game with Joe Toye. Joe Toye catches the ball in the corner, drives baseline, and absolutely jams it down on Eric Holman, who falls down, who falls to the ground, and Toye kind of stands over him a little bit. That play was kind of an iconic play in Vanderbilt basketball this year, and we saw it. We saw it on SportsCenter. It was the number one play in the morning on the top 10. He got a little love from Shaquille O'Neal. I mean, that's just not something that happens every day with this program, and to see that live and to see the aesthetic value of a play like that was really incredible.
When Shaq's asking about you, I think you know you've made it in some way. For me, I mean, there are so many plays to pick from. The tipped up pass that Trey Ellis caught for a touchdown against Western Kentucky, the Kyle Shermer reaching the ball over the goal line against Kansas State, just the effort there. One I want to go with has got to be from Vanderbilt soccer. Lydia Simmons, the senior, in the last game of the year, just curls a ball beautifully from outside the box, just inside the upper 90 on the left side. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen in my life. It just casually strolling up and just ripping that shot in was absolutely incredible. But so many good options for that, and I think that's just a testament to how incredible some of these Vanderbilt teams have been this year, even if the results haven't quite been there. Moving on now, we're going to look at the Coach of the Year, and once again, a lot of choices here. One we've talked about is Bryce Drew, but those are more for accomplishments that are coming down the line. But guys, who you got here?
I mean, I have to go with the only coach that's won a national championship so far, and that's John Williamson. And it's not just his first, it's his second national championship with this program. And this is a guy who's been recognized as an elite coach, not just at Vanderbilt, but on the NCAA level. I mean, he's a former NCAA Coach of the Year in women's bowling. So this is a guy who's been there, he's done it, and once you're there once, it's so hard to repeat, and he was able to win it a few years ago, able to win it again this year, down 3-2 in that series, best-of-7 series, and had this team come back to win, showed incredible poise, perseverance, and it's a national championship, and that's not something you can say every day, and kudos to John Williamson for making it happen.
Right, so my pick's going to be Tim Corbin. And I feel like Tim Corbin's one of those guys you can throw in this conversation year after year after year. But I think what he's doing this year is special and unique in the way that he's going about it. I mean, last season for the baseball team, kind of a letdown, like really didn't excel as much as we want to, especially with the talent and the high draft picks that we had on that team. But coming into this year, the number one draft class was a buzzword that we've said on the show a ton, definitely something that was around this program. And there's a lot of expectations that come with that. And you really don't know how the team's going to perform when they're that heavily dependent on a number one draft class. Because freshmen coming into college, as much as you scout and as much as you watch high school games, you just really don't know how that skill is going to translate to a game that's a lot more fast-paced and to a college lifestyle in general. There's just so much to manage from a coach's perspective. And the way that he's handled this freshman draft class, or not draft class, recruiting class, the way he's handled them, the way he's put them in positions to succeed, and the way he's genuinely just trusted the talent of these guys and been able to foster that talent, I think it's been very impressive, and we've seen that in the success of the team. I mean, just coming out ahead in the series against number 5 Ole Miss. So I think that the way he's handled these freshmen have been very impressive.
Can't disagree with anything there. Now on to the bigger awards here. We got female MVP. There are a lot in the women's sports here at Vanderbilt. So much success this year. Soccer going to the NCAA tournament, women's bowling winning a national championship, women's tennis doing big things as well. Who you guys got?
Right, so my female MVP is going to go to the MVP of the women's bowling tournament. And fortunately, there's actually a co-MVP of that tournament. So my MVP award is going to go to Emily Rigney and Katie Stark, who are both, again, the co-MVPs of that tournament. And what was really amazing, and you talked about this earlier, is they were down 3-2 in that series. So what happened was they needed really consistent play over those last 2 games. And both Rigney and Stark were the ones that were really able to get it done for them. They had a lot of consecutive strikes. They really helped build a lot of momentum for this team. And the play of them, after they had a pretty streaky regular season, that consistency in this tournament, in that final series of 7, is what really gave Vanderbilt that momentum to push them over the edge. So that's why they have to win my MVP of the year.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, can't go wrong with national champions, like you just said. I have to go with Astra Sharma, and I went with Astra Sharma last year, and I'll go with Astra Sharma again, and we might as well name the award, I feel like, after Astra Sharma. I mean, she was the SEC Player of the Year last year, very well might win the SEC Player of the Year this year. The only reason she might not win it this year is because she had to take some time off to go over to Australia and play in the Australian Open. Just casually had to play in the Australian Open, and that's unheard of for college tennis players to be able to do that. Really speaks to her excellence, not just on a college level, but on a world level. And I think that's something that's so rare, and we've been privileged to see it with her over the past couple of years, seen it again this year. And Vanderbilt is SEC women's tennis champions again this year for the second year in a row, and this team is going to make a push at an NCAA championship like they did a couple years ago. And so Astra Sharma leads the charge there, and I think the best player on a team that has a good shot to win a national title and has already won an SEC title has to get that award from me.
Before we move into the male MVP, I wanted to throw a sleeper pick in here, and that's Grace Bell from the women's lacrosse team, because this team had some injury issues with goalies. Madison Foglio done for a little while. She's now back in the fold. Grace Bell, coming into this year, never played goalie in lacrosse in her entire lacrosse career. Never. Not at any level. She comes in and has to play goalie and plays pretty well, keeps them in games, wins them lacrosse games against conference opponents. That's remarkable. That's the kind of story that's just absolutely incredible. You never hear much about that. But I mean, she's a player that has just gone in there, done her job, and a job that she did not expect to have, that has never done before, and just played pretty well. So I mean, that's a pretty remarkable story if you ask me. And now, finally, the male MVP award. A whole lot to choose from again here. Guys, who are you taking?
So I struggled with this one a lot, and I think it's a lot because there have been guys in each sport that have really deserved this award. I mean, we just talked about Austin Martin in baseball. Kyle Schirmer had an excellent season leading this football team, and Jeff Roberson was an All-SEC selection. And so when you look across the board, I mean, there's really no wrong answer, but I have to go kind of away from the three main sports there, and I'm going to go with Theo Humphrey from golf. And Humphrey's a guy who, in the past few years, he's been one of the elite golfers in all of the NCAA. But this season, he's ranked as the number 5 golfer in all of college golf. This is a team that has, again, national championship aspirations. And I think that's something we haven't seen as much from these other men's teams here. I mean, he's a guy who shoots, he averages a 70 on any given day, which is ridiculous for anybody who plays golf. And Vanderbilt has kind of this tradition in golf where these guys turn out to be pros. I mean, Brett Snedeker, Luke List, these are guys who are on the PGA Tour. And Humphrey looks like that next guy, and I would not be surprised to see him as a mainstay on the PGA Tour in a few years. And again, like we just said with Astra Sharma, when your talent kind of transcends your college career and you can make that not just on the next level, but you can be great on that next level, I think you deserve a nod. And the MVP award, I think, fits him perfectly.
Right, so when I'm thinking about who to give an MVP award to, not to get bogged down too much in like that traditional sports journalism talk, like what is an MVP, but I definitely think that someone who's instrumental to the success of their team. And when I'm thinking about that, the position that jumps out to me right away is quarterback of the football team. But what I want to talk about more is what Kyle Schirmer did this year and how he sets up the team for next year. So that's why Kyle Schirmer is going to be my male MVP of the year. So when we were coming into the season, we really weren't too sure what to expect of Kyle Schirmer. There are definitely bright spots in his season last season, but we really didn't know which Kyle Schirmer was going to show up. The Kyle Schirmer that has really, really good games, throws for 4 touchdowns, 400-plus yards, or the Kyle Schirmer that will throw 2 picks and not a single touchdown in a game. We really didn't know what type of level of consistency we were going to get. And Kyle Schirmer really surprised us, but more so by all the things that he didn't do. He didn't take a lot of sacks compared to last year. He almost cut his sacks in half. And what that shows me is a quarterback who's matured and a quarterback who has better decision-making and quicker decision-making. We've also seen his touchdown to interception ratio really go up. He threw for 2,700 yards and 27 touchdowns, which are numbers that don't jump off the page, but he didn't beat this team, and he didn't get in the way of this team having success. So that's why when I think about MVP, looking at the football team as a whole, there weren't a ton of bright spots, weren't a ton of places to really hang our hat on. But I think Kyle Schirmer's development and what he can potentially do for us next year is why he's going to win my MVP.
Schirmer's going to be a late-round pick in the NFL draft next year. I can almost guarantee that. Maybe his dad will take him to New York. Who knows? But to me, Schirmer is one of the reasons why they even got to 5 wins. And Theo Humphrey is just going to be the next Brent Snedeker, or possibly even better than that, I think. But to me, an MVP has got to go to Jeff Roberson, because without him, I don't think this Vanderbilt basketball team gets nearly as many wins as they did. he played like he was much taller than he was, and that was a really good thing for this team that lacked a lot of size. And I think overall he contributed so much to their success. All the seniors really did, but Roberson had to really step up his game late in the year, and I think that's what puts him in an MVP category in my mind. And obviously the candidates you brought up and all of these have been very formidable candidates and definitely deserve the honor as well. With that, that will wrap up this season of VU Sports Wired. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. Before we go, we have to wish a huge congratulations to our director, Ryan Suter, for becoming the station manager of VTV for next year. A huge honor for a man behind the scenes. He does so much great work for us here at VTV, and we're really happy to have him in charge of the whole thing next year. So we're really happy about that. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. I'm Cutler Klein, alongside Max Schneider, Drew Sundaram. We'll see you next year.